25 kilómetros.
No,
¿No?
no, nada más a Mitla son 55.
Ok.
Mitla. Y de ahí te sigues, más adelante está Matatán.
Ah, ¿es posible? ¿Tiene colectivo para
Sí,
dónde?
si quieres yo te llevo al colectivo, te cobro 60 pesos.
¿60 pesos?
Ajá.
Oh, es muy bueno.
Sí, mejor, y ahí agarras el colectivo para allá.
Ajá, ¿cuánto es para el colectivo?
60.
¿60?
O sea, yo ahorita acá en 60, el colectivo creo que te cobra
50?
más o menos.
50?
No, es
No.
que no sale.
Es que, no.
No sale. Te vas a ahorrar porque son 60. Y échale 50 que te cobre el colectivo.
Ajá.
Son 110. Porque van subiendo y bajando. Y nosotros no, nosotros nada más vamos especial y nos regresamos vacío. Por eso
Ok.
se cobra el especial.
Ok.
Pero te conviene más así.
50 para el colectivo.
No sale.
¿No sabe?
No sale.
Ok. Es 60.
¿Eh?
Gracias. So, just got into the taxi right now. He's gonna take me to the collectible station. I just arrived here at the, what is this called again? What?
Agave.
Yeah. This is Henry. He's gonna give me a tour guide here at the Mezcal Distillery.
Around 35 different agave species in Oaxaca.
Right.
In all of Mexico, there's more than 200 different species. So we have a lot of mezcal we can make. That's the main difference between mezcal and tequila.
Right.
Is that mezcal is a little bit more extensive, and also mainly has to be made traditionally. So the part of an agave that we use for mezcal making are the agave hearts,
Right.
the core of an agave.
Mm-hmm.
We use that because it contains starch. In this case, the starch is what we're going to use later on to obtain sugar and then alcohol. So you do not use the leaves because
Right.
this has no starch in them.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah, so back in the day, we used to make textiles, ropes, other products.
Right.
It's very fibrous.
Oh, okay.
In this case, we use it for other uses except for mezcal making.
So mainly we use the cores in order to
Exactly. Yeah.
get the good old juice out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in this case, it's only the heart of the agave.
Right.
In this case, we do have to wait until an agave is ripe so we can use it for mezcal making. How can we tell once an agave is ripe? Once it gives off the agave flower.
Where's the flower? Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how long does that normally take?
To grow?
Yeah,
Takes
get right.
around, if it's espadín, 8 to 12 years.
8 to 12 years.
Yeah, so they're known as century trees in English.
Mm-hmm.
So they are known that way because they do take a long time to grow.
Right.
Now, agave espadín is the agave that takes the least amount of time to grow, 8 to 12 years.
Right.
This one, for example, known as a tepestate,
Yeah.
takes around 25 up to 30 years in growth.
Oh, wow.
So it does take a long time.
Yeah.
It is basically the main way of reproduction of any agave. So when it flowers, this one grows, it blossoms. From those blossoms, they produce seeds. Those seeds fall to the ground, and we basically obtain another agave.
Right.
The detail is, if we're going to use it for mezcal making, we have to cut off the flower before it fully grows. Because if not, all the starch goes from the agave to the flower, and we lose our product. So, in this case, if we're going to use it for reproduction, we leave it growing. If we're going to use it for mezcal, we cut it off before it fully grows. So,
Wow.
in this
Interesting.
case,
Yeah.
we can only use an agave once because it is the agave heart that we're going to use. So even if it, in this case, we use it for mezcal making,
Yeah.
it's going to die.
Okay.
If we leave it, I can say, blossoming, it's also going to die. So this one, for example, is already dry.
Right,
In
right.
this case,
Yeah,
after
look.
it blossoms, it basically dies. Yeah. So all agaves are exactly the same way. They just all take different time to grow, give off different flavors, and in this case are found in different areas in Oaxaca.
Mm-hmm.
These agaves over here, for example, are agaves, or wild agaves. So,
Wild agaves.
yeah.
So,
The agave espadín is the only cultivated agave. This one you can find it almost everywhere. Mountain regions, hotter climates, coastal regions.
right, right.
So that's why it's the most popular of them all. The wild agaves are very unique in their own way because they all have different flavors, sometimes different textures.
Right.
In this case, they all are very unique in their own way. In this case, some of them also don't just get you drunk. So
They don't?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just about to ask that the difference between the regular one and the wild ones.
So there's lots of differences. Now,
Right.
First one we're going to take a look at is this one that looks like a palm tree.
Yeah.
So as you can see, this one is different both in shape and also in flavor. Now, in this case, the Agave Heart is the chunk that we have in the middle. It's not round like others, it's long. So,
Yeah.
quiche means long in Zapotec.
Oh, quiche. Yeah. Actually, I just learned that word yesterday from a mezcal shop.
Yeah.
The guy told me this was made from wild agave, and it's called quiche. Some other stuff which I can't recall. Yeah.
Exactly. So in this case,
Yeah.
it's because in this case it's an agave that's mainly found in this area of Oaxaca.
Okay.
And over here they mainly speak Zapotec, so naturally has a Zapotec name to it. Yeah. So in this case, a very unique agave. It takes around 18 years to fully grow. This one has been here for 5 years. That one over there, around 10 years.
Yeah, it looks a little bit taller.
Exactly. So it
Yeah.
does grow very, very tall.
Yeah.
Now, the mezcal, or at least the flavor of this mezcal, is a little bit more, you can say, in between bitter, citrus, and sweet. So you can get anywhere from the taste, for example, of cacao. Some people get dark chocolate in a certain kind of mezcal.
Right.
Some people get something citrusy or fruity.
Right.
In this case, there's different kinds of flavors that you can obtain. The thing is that all mezcal bottles, all batches of mezcal, they're always going to have a different flavor. They're not always exactly the same.
Right.
That's the detail about wild agaves, is that
Oh, okay.
no one bottle has the same flavor. No one batch has the same flavor. So they're all very unique in that aspect. So very unique agave that's mainly found here in the Central Valley regions of Oaxaca.
Right.
So next one we're gonna take a look at is known as coyote.
That's coyote.
So coyote is a very unique agave because in this case, it's an agave that's only found in the mountain regions of Oaxaca. And also, it's a more drier mezcal. Earthier, smokier, or even woodier. It's a mezcal that does not just get us drunk. Maybe in this case, after a few glasses, you're going to start to see pink elephants crossing the road. So it does
That would
have
be
a
interesting. What is it called in coyote?
Coyote?
Coyote.
In this case, it's known as coyote because it's mainly found in the mountain regions of
Yeah.
Oaxaca. Just like normal, you might say coyotes are found here.
Because I noticed mostly prefer the smoky, woody, earthy type mezcal for some reason. So that's good to know that coyote. What's the other name for it again?
So it's coyote. In this case, they have around 14 different kinds of names.
Yeah.
But the most popular is coyote.
Coyote. Yeah.
So in
All
this
right.
case, a very unique kind of an agave.
Right.
Like I mentioned, to actually get you can say high out of this mezcal,
Yeah.
you are going to have to drink 9, 10, or even 11 glasses. So in this case, it is an aspect. It does kind of have that psychedelic effect.
Right.
But I don't know anybody that has actually gotten high with that mezcal before. Or at least anybody that has remembered it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 16 years to fully grow. A very unique kind of an agave. One of the more harder to find agaves in all of Oaxaca.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Now,
Yeah.
the one that we have next to it is a very rare agave. This one is one of the hardest to find in all of Mexico, all of Oaxaca. This one is known as Jabali.
Cavalier.
Boar.
Cavalier.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in this case, it's known as boar because of the thorns that it have that kind of go inward, like a boar's tooth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think we have those in Haiti. And, yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So,
In my country. So I'm from Haiti.
oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so agaves are not just found in Oaxaca or in Mexico. There's in lots of places, mainly where there's, you can say, desert regions.
There's a region.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
desert regions. This one is a very unique one because it's mainly found where there's lots of bodies of water. Next to rivers, lakes, and ponds, for example.
Yeah.
So, in this case, very unique. It takes around 18 to 20 years to fully grow, and in this case, it gives off a better, you can say, sweeter flavor.
Yeah.
So, either sweeter, fruitier, and a lot more easier on the palate than most mezcals.
Yeah.
It's only 3-time distilled wild agave that we have. All of them are distilled 2 times under law, so that we can actually obtain a mezcal that's both good to drink and safe.
Right.
This one's only 3-time distilled because of the amount of minerals that it has. It's either a very green mezcal or a very thick mezcal. People don't like a mezcal that's either thick or green, so we distill it a 3rd time so it can basically be like the mezcal that we all traditionally know and love. In this case, crystal clear and a lot like liquid.
Right.
Very unique kind of an agave.
Yeah, it does.
Last one I want to take a look at is this one that's known as a tepestate. Tepestate means on top of the hill. So as you can imagine,
Yeah.
it's found in the mountain regions of Oaxaca.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, 25 to 30 years in growth. It's one of the agaves that takes the most amount of time to fully grow. There's
Wow.
around 3 different species that takes around 25 to 30 years. Now, this one, just because it's very big, just because it takes a long time to grow, does not mean that we actually obtain more product from it. The actual Agave Hearts is just the size of a basketball. In this case, it's very small. It's one of the agave that produces the least amount of products.
Right.
Agave that produces the most is the Agave Spadin. From 5 tons of agave, around 200 liters of mezcal. 5 tons of this agave, around 120 liters of mezcal. So almost half of what the other produces. So,
Yeah.
in this case, that's why it's not exactly, you can say, commercialized. All wild agaves are not exactly for commercial sales. Because, number one, we wouldn't keep up with demands. And number two,
Right.
if we actually did, some agaves might go extinct. So, that's why the wild agaves, you're only going to find them in Oaxaca. The Agave Spadin, for example, you're going to find them almost everywhere because it's the most cultivated agave.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, in this case, like I mentioned, 35 different species in Oaxaca, more than 200 in all of Mexico. So, there's lots of species of agave. There's lots of mezcal to actually try.
Yeah, yeah.
So, now then, let's go to the other side of the distillery. We'll go check out the first part of mezcal making.
Sure, let's do it.
So like I mentioned, we only use Agave Hearts.
Right.
Cut off the leaves,
Mm-hmm.
and we slice up the agaves a little finer so we can actually bake them faster.
Right.
The baking process is the first part of mezcal making. Now, to bake the agaves, we use this very special oven known as a cone oven.
Right.
It's known this way because it has a cone-like shape to it. So, this one has a capacity of 5 tons of agave. Now, this is how it looks from the outside.
Right.
With the agave trash and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
We're actually going to go to the back part of the distillery. We're going to see how it looks from the inside.
Interesting. And what is this?
So that is the grinding process.
Oh, the grinding process.
Yeah, first of all, they're baked, then from there they're grounded. So there's basically 4 main steps of mezcal making.
Okay.
In this case, yeah, the first part is the baking process.
The baking process.
So, exactly. So, the thing is that agaves don't actually have sugar. So, the starch in the baking process turns into sugar.
How so?
Basically, like I mentioned,
Yeah.
almost anything, any kind of starch that once you bake them,
Right.
or kind of heat them, they get a little bit sweeter.
Right, right.
Now, not all of them, but agave is one of the few starches that once you actually bake them, all the starch turns into sugar. So, in this
Interesting.
case,
Yeah.
once the agave comes out of the oven, they're going to be very sweet.
Right.
That sugar is what we're going to use later on to obtain alcohol. So, this is how the oven looks from the inside.
Right.
Now, this oven is a little bit bigger. This one does have a capacity of 15 tons of agave. So it's a lot more capacity.
Yeah, it does look deep.
Yeah, this one's around 4.5 meters deep. It's still not completely clean. That's why it still kind of has this bunch of dirt on top.
Right.
So, 4.5 meters deep and around 4 meters wide. How this oven works is, first of all, we fill it up halfway up with logs. So, we basically use 2 different kinds of log. Guamuche or mesquite.
Right.
We use these logs in general because they give off a better smoky flavor.
Right.
So, we fill up half of the oven and we set the logs on fire. Shh, Machula. So, once the logs then catch flame, we're going to add in a layer of volcanic rock or river rocks.
Yeah.
In this case, we use rocks that are very porous because they heat up fast, you can take heat for longer periods of time, and does not break apart under the heat and pressure.
Right.
So, put this on top of the rock and wait for these ones to get red hot. Once these ones are basically on fire, we add in what's known as bagazo.
Bagazo.
Bagazo is the agave trash that we saw up front and the other oven. Now, in this case, it's basically agave that has already been distilled. Agave that has already been used for mezcal making. So, in this case, we're just left with the fiber, the trash.
Yeah.
Instead of just throwing this away, we moisten it up, we add in a lot of water, and we put that on top of the rock. This is going to help the agave so that way they won't touch the rock directly.
Right.
So that way they won't burn.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to bake them, not trying to burn them. So, on top of the pile of rocks, we add in a lot of this bagazo. Basically, like I mentioned, half of the oven's already filled with logs.
Right.
The other, you can say, quarter with rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest is filled with the bagazo. So as you saw in the other oven,
Yeah.
this basically fills up with the bagazo.
Right.
Now, what goes underground is the fuel. What goes on the surface are the agaves. 15 tons is a lot, so we do have to slice up the agave so we can actually stack them on top of each other. Once you stack them on top, you're going to have a small hill of agave that's around 2 meters high.
Mm-hmm.
Now, On top of that small hill of agaves, we add in palm leaf blankets, around 6 or 7. They have to be moist, they have to have water in between them so that way they won't burn directly. But this is mainly so that way no dirt can enter our agave. Because from there we add in a layer of dirt on top.
Right.
The dirt is so that way no smoke, no heat, and no vapor can escape the oven. So it's maintained sealed and baking for around 7 days.
7 days.
1 week is how long it takes to cook from 5 to 15 tons of agave. Now, since this has no entrance of oxygen,
Right.
we actually don't have any flames. What cooks the agave is the residual heat from the rock. So it's more like, you can say, smoking instead of baking, because there's not very much high temperatures in the oven. Every day it cools down even more.
Right.
That's why it takes around 7 days, because in this case, they're slow baking. Now, like I mentioned, this is to convert all the starches into sugar. So once agaves come out of the oven, they're going to be very sweet.
Right.
But also very smoky naturally because of the smoke from the logs. That's why mezcal is smokier, because of the actual process, the logs inside of the oven.
Yeah.
That's why tequila is not smoky. In this case, tequila, they either boil agave or sometimes they use gas ovens. In this case, since it's natural, it gets that natural smokiness. So,
Yeah.
in this case, all the agaves, after we take them out of the oven, like I mentioned, they're going to be very sweet and smoky, but they're also still going to be very hot.
Right.
So, we leave them out in the open for a day so that they can cool off, and then from there, take it to the next process, which is the grinding process.
Right.
Yes. You would have come here earlier. Yeah, you probably would have seen the mule grinding up the agave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
Oh, interesting.
this is known as a taona chilena. This is what we use for both mezcal and tequila. Now, in this case, all the agaves, after they cool down, we take them to the center of the grinder, we chop them up finer so that they can grind up easier and faster.
Right.
Put it to the sides of the grinder, and we tie in a mule on this end of the rock so you can pull the boulder and grind up the agave. So, this process is very simple, it's just to grind up agave.
Right.
It's not to separate the liquid from the solid.
Okay. Yeah, I was just about to ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this case, because agaves are actually very dry. Coming out of the oven, they're a lot drier.
Yeah.
So, what we obtain at the end, in this case, is agave pulp. As you can see, it looks more like agave paste.
Yeah.
So, the reason why we grind them up is because it's easier to ferment this than agaves that are fully intact. In this case, we do this for the fermentation, to accelerate the fermentation process.
Right.
So, in this case, after all the agave has been grounded up finely, we pick everything up with pitchforks, with shovels, or even by hand, and we take it to the next process for the fermentation process.
Yeah.
So, this part of mezcal making, some people don't actually really like because of the mule.
Right.
But mezcal, so that we can be traditional mezcal, we have to do everything traditionally.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. So we can't actually change the mule for a motorcycle, for example. 'Cause
A
if
motorcycle. Oh, somebody just.
Not, yeah, so we cannot do that actually.
Oh.
Yeah. Because if we do, for example, switch to horses or anything else,
Yeah.
it cannot be considered traditional mezcal. It has to
Oh.
be considered industrial mezcal.
Industrial.
Yeah, so everything is very regulated when it comes to mezcal. So in this case,
Interesting.
yeah, so you cannot change anything at all. It has to be made exactly the same way.
Right.
Yeah. So everything is then recollected, and we take it to the next process for the fermentation process.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let's go check this out.
Let's do it.
So from Haiti,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a little far, right?
Not too far.
Yeah.
Normally, I visit the Riviera Maya side. This time, decided to come to the Pacific coast. I'm inside.
Yeah. So I believe it's a little different from Oaxaca and Haiti, right?
What was that?
I believe it's very different from Oaxaca and Haiti.
Oh yeah, very, very, very.
Yeah.
So this is the fermentation process.
Yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
like I mentioned, all the ground up agave, we then leave them inside of the containers for the fermentation process.
Right.
How can we tell when it's starting to ferment? Is that it takes out a lot of bubbles.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, in this case, like I mentioned, agaves are actually very dry. So normally, we do have to add in more water to obtain more liquid.
Yeah.
Before that, we leave the agaves inside of the containers for around 2 to 3 days. That small lapse of time, since it is very sweet, we obtain a lot of bees. Sometimes small animals might fall inside the container. This helps us obtain bacteria and yeast, microorganisms naturally, so we can also obtain yeast naturally.
Yeah.
So, this is how it was done back in the day, from our ancestors. because there's no such thing as yeast as they can buy or sell, for example. So, in this case, if we do not actually obtain the bacteria or microorganisms naturally, we also just add in yeast as an ingredient. But we try to obtain everything naturally.
Right.
So, from there, we leave them here in these containers, we add in the water, and we maintain them sealed for around 15 days up to 1 month. That's how long it takes for the fermentation naturally.
Right.
It all depends on the climate. That's why we have this greenhouse roof on top so that we can ferment faster. We maintain it sealed so that way no gases can escape the container and it can ferment better, faster. So, how can we tell once one of these containers is fully fermented? Is that number one, it's going to start to smell a lot like vinegar. It's going to start to smell really bad.
Right.
Number two, it's going to generate a small layer of foam, either brown or dark brown on top. And number three, as we saw, it bubbles.
Right.
Once it's fully fermented, it's going to stop bubbling. Once it's fully fermented, we take off the lid and we add on top what's known as the bell, the alambique.
Okay.
So, we actually have one that's connected here. Let's go check this out.
All right, let's do it.
So, we add on top of the bell, and as you can see there, the bell has a small hole on top.
Right.
We add in this pipe known as a turbante. One end goes on top of the bell. The other end inside of the serpentine. The serpentine is the pipe that's in a spiral shape inside of the water. The water is just to cool down the pipe.
Okay.
It does not make contact with the mezcal directly.
Okay.
The exit of this pipe is on the other side of this fountain. So, first of all, we seal it under pressure. From there, we turn on the oven.
Right.
In this case, this is how we separate the liquid from the solid. You can say distillation is mainly to separate the liquid from the solid and the alcohols from the rest of the liquid.
Right.
So, how we separate the liquid from the solid? Vaporizing the liquid. So, we turn on the oven and we let everything boil.
Right.
Now, what vaporizes the fastest are alcohols because they're the lightest of all liquids. So, all the alcohol vaporizes, it goes in through the bell. It starts condensing inside of the turbante because of the small space that this has. It starts to form drops of alcohol on this end. On the other end is a small stream of alcohol.
Right.
And inside of the serpentine, the liquid cools down. Like I mentioned, it does not touch the water directly.
It doesn't. Really.
So, this is in a spiral shape so that will be more time inside of the water and cool down a lot more.
Right.
Now, the entrance, like I mentioned, is on the surface. The exit is on this side of the container of the fountain.
Right.
So out of that small hole right there comes out liquid mezcal. First distillation mezcal. It comes out of a small, you can say, stream.
Right.
Now, first distillation mezcal contains methanol, mezcal, water, maybe other kinds of vinegars and other kinds of acids. So it's not pure. Maximum you can obtain a mezcal is around 13 to 18% alcohol content. It's not very strong.
Right.
Methanol is an alcohol that we cannot consume because it can get you blind, it can damage organs.
Right.
So, we have to distill our mezcal a second time for purification. Now, we can separate most of the products in the first distillation. Methanol is the lightest of all the alcohol, so it comes out first.
Right.
Methanol has a natural sky blue color, or a little bit of a greener tone to it. That's how we can tell it's methanol.
Right.
Now, most of it comes out in the beginning, but we cannot separate it completely.
Right.
So, we separate the mezcal, and then we take it to the next area for the second distillation. So, like follow me, let's go check this out.
Sure. Let's do it.
Alright, so over here will be down there.
Down here, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's, like I mentioned, just basically 5 steps, 4 steps, but it's kind of complicated.
Yeah, it seems like we're on the third steps now, right?
Yeah, so
It's
now
like
we're on the third
first.
step.
Yeah, third. Yeah. For sure.
In this case, it's very simple, but it's also very, you can say, complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting a mezcal that's actually safe, so a little careful here because it is a little slippery.
Okay. Yeah.
Getting a mezcal that's safe and actually very good tasting is actually very hard. So, in this case, as you can see here, we have smaller containers. Now, in this case, the main difference between the first distillation and the second is that in the second we mainly use copper.
Right.
Copper was used back in the day from our ancestors because there was no such thing as stainless steel. So it's part of traditional mezcal.
Right.
We only distilled the mezcal one time with copper because copper is a very strong mineral. If we were to distill it 2 times, you'll get too much mineral flavor.
Yeah.
And it'll kind of stink up our mezcal.
Yeah.
So we only do it a second distillation. Now, inside the container we add in the mezcal, and exactly the same thing as the first distillation. You turn on the oven, all the mezcal vaporizes, goes in through the bell, condenses in the turbante, and comes out the other end like liquid mezcal. Now, if our mezcal still has methanol, the methanol comes out first, and we let it drain away. After that, we obtain the most concentration of mezcal. This is known as mezcal de punta. Mezcal de punta can have from 70 up to 90% alcohol content. It's basically the most concentration, is the purest alcohol it's going to come out.
Right.
So, since we obtain the most concentration in the beginning, what comes out after that are less alcohol content mezcals, more water content. So, mezcals from 90 up to 50% alcohol content, what comes out basically in the beginning,
Yeah.
that's what we use to make the bottles of mezcal. Now we all know and love. In this case, it's both the purest form of mezcal and a little bit of water adds in a little bit of the actual mineral flavor from the copper. Now, it is still going to be too strong.
Right.
So we do have to dilute that mezcal with distilled water. We distill our water so it has no actual minerals, no flavor, and in this case, pure water.
Right.
So we dilute that mezcal anywhere between 36.5 and maximum 55% alcohol content, which is the most that we have allowed for legal sales. Now, that's what's done with the head of the mezcal,
Right.
What's done after 50 to 25% alcohol content, that's known as the body. The body is what comes out in between the mezcal. Now, the body of the mezcal is what we use to make the creams and liquors.
Yeah.
It's still good drinkable mezcal, but the excess water, like I mentioned, gives too much mineral flavor and stinks up our mezcal too much. So, we dilute that with creams, with liquors, to taste more like a cocktail.
Yeah.
Now, that can go for around 14% alcohol content. What comes out all the way at the end, 25% less alcohol content, that's known as the tail. The tail is what we use for the hand sanitizers and other products that are not consumed. In this case, once you get to 5% alcohol content mezcal, that we just drain it away. Because it's mezcal, water, and may contain a little bit of vinegars and acids from the first distillation.
Right.
So, in this case, the head of mezcal, like I mentioned, the mezcal that we diluted with water,
Yeah.
that to obtain mezcal joven is bottled up and then sold. Mezcal joven is not aged at all. That's how it's completely crystal clear. White.
Right.
So, 2 times distilled, diluted, bottled up, and sold. The original flavor of agave, smokiness from the oven, and mineral from the copper.
Oh.
There are barrel-aged mezcal. Those ones have other names. They're not joven anymore. In this case, reposado. Reposados are barrel-aged for less than a year, a couple months.
Right.
Añejos basically means that it's been barrel-aged for 1 year up to more than 1 year. For example, 50 years. So, reposado less than a year, and añejo more than 1 year.
Right.
Now, in this case, those are the 3 most common mezcal. In total, there's around 8 different kinds of mezcal. More than 35 different agave species.
Right.
So, in reality, we can obtain more than 100 different kinds of mezcal. But in this case, we try to maintain things a little bit more traditional.
Yeah.
The wild agaves, we do not barrel age them, we do not age them, we do not add in any ingredients because it kind of kills the flavor.
Yeah.
So, the only agave that we actually use to make all 8 different kinds of mezcal is agave espadín. The rest of the wild agaves are just made joven
Right.
because they actually have their own unique flavor.
Yeah.
But that's basically how we obtain mezcal. From
And-
agaves and also fermentation, distillation, and they're all diluted. No mezcal is not diluted.
Wow, it's interesting. It's an interesting process how it started from the first, second, third, and fourth steps to here and then. Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's very simple, but it's actually very complicated to make.
Yeah.
So, for example, you're only allowed to make mezcal if you're a master mezcal maker.
Oh, really?
A master mezcal maker has to have at least 20 years of experience. So,
Interesting. So how long this space has been open?
So making mezcal, this family has been making mezcal for around 50 years, but it's only been certified for around 20 years. Yeah, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed there are like multiple distilleries alongside the world and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty
So
cool.
there's lots of mezcal distilleries, mostly in this area of Oaxaca.
Uh-huh.
The detail though is just finding one that's actually certified. Mainly because that's how you can tell that mezcal is good enough to drink.
Right.
And because in this case, like I mentioned, a good mezcal is safe and it's actually good tasting. A bad mezcal can be deadly, for example.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of
Interesting.
methanol.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I didn't know that. Like, yeah.
so all kinds of alcohols, if they're not made correctly,
Right.
they can all be dangerous.
Yeah.
But a good mezcal can up to, for example, be very beneficial, you might say. Mainly because a good mezcal should not really give you very much of a hangover.
Right. Right.
So-
I noticed that I never get a hangover from mezcal.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, let me ask you a quick question. Does like certain distilleries cut corners in order to produce as many as they?
Yes, so mainly that you can see it in industrial distilleries.
Yeah.
Industrial mezcal, well, there's 3 different kinds of mezcal distilleries.
Uh-huh.
Industrial,
Right.
this one which is artisanal, and ancestral. Now, industrial, they always make big batches of mezcal.
Right.
They kind of cut corners so that way in this case they can make it faster,
Right.
like I mentioned, in larger quantities.
And put it out there.
Exactly so.
Yeah.
In this case, they're not going to have the same flavor. They're going to have a little bit more of a smokiness to them.
Yeah.
Because they either don't use the same wood, they use different kinds of wood, sometimes charcoal.
Right.
In this case, sometimes the flavors are added as ingredients.
Yeah.
We're not exactly sure how they make them, but they do make them a lot faster. You can tell that it's not traditional. So, these are the kinds of mezcal that you guys can find on the shelf markets of Walmart and other stores.
Oh, those.
Yeah. So in this case,
Yeah.
all industrial mezcal are sold, or also, like I mentioned, exported. So they're very easy to find.
Right. Right.
Now, artisanal mezcal is very hard to obtain. Mainly they're only found in Oaxaca.
Right.
Or in other countries that have that name origin of mezcal.
Yeah.
So, it is going to be better tasting, it is going to be harder to find, and it's going to be more natural. So, like this one over here, we only make mezcal to sell here.
Oh,
We
really?
do not export, we do not have other stores. In this
Interesting.
case, mainly because of the wild agaves. Because our specialty are wild agaves.
Right.
Like I mentioned, we cannot export them. We cannot get too much of a demand of them. Because if not, we might actually leave an agave species extinct.
Yeah.
So in this case, that's why we only sell them here. That's why we have such a small mezcal distillery. Because we only make under demand.
So this is it. This is on the whole operation right here.
Exactly.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We only make mezcal under demand. The more people we have, the more mezcal we make. Now, the third kind of mezcal distillery, Ancestral Mescal, the biggest difference from ancestral and artisanal is that in ancestral mezcals, instead of steel containers,
Right.
they use clay pots. And for fermenting, instead of steel containers, they use animal hide, animal skin. Other kinds of ingredients like, you might say dirt, or in this case, maybe even, for example, dead animals. So I've seen a person add in a sock into this container.
Yeah.
In this case, it is more natural, it is more hard to find. A good mezcal, ancestral mezcal distillery can make around 100 bottles a year, for example. So it's not exactly very, very big.
Right.
So, like I mentioned, they're going to have more flavor because they're actual clay pots, because they're fermented.
Right.
Now, the detail, though, is that since they're not regulated,
Yeah.
you can either be stumbling upon a bottle that costs, for example, that's worth gold, or you guys can find a mezcal that's kind of deadly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like rolling the dice. Yeah. Now, a mezcal bottle of ancestral mezcal in an industrial mezcal distillery can go for a minimum around 10,000 pesos. So it is kind of expensive. But like I mentioned, you can find it. You can find something that's worth gold, or find something that's dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Good
that's
to
the
know.
kind of detail that those mezcals.
Yeah. All right.
Those ones are mainly found locally.
Locals. Are they safe to drink? It's very safe.
So, like I mentioned, this is not regulated. You cannot actually
Yeah.
find that information.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but a small tip if you guys are going to try Ancestral Mescal,
Right.
or any kind of Mescal that's not regulated,
Yeah.
I recommend going for a Mescal bottle that has a worm in it. Yeah. I'm not sure you guys have seen that in tequila bottles, they have a small worm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the worm actually serves a purpose. Back in the day, it was for regulation. Nowadays, it's more like for aesthetics and commercial. So, the worms were for regulation. Why? Because our ancestors back in the day had no actual laboratories to send our mescal
Yeah.
to see if our mescal is safe to drink.
Yeah.
So, how do they know? It's because of the agave worms. After the second distillation of an agave spadine, they leave the mescals inside of wooden barrels for 2 to 3 months with 2 to 3 kilos of agave worm. Not just the worm inside of the bottle. Now, if the mescal is good mescal,
Right.
either with no methanol or not too much alcohol content, the worms that have a natural red color, they turn white. Nothing else happens to it.
Yeah.
That's how you can tell that it's safe to drink. How can you tell if a mescal is not safe?
Right.
The worms, they dissolve inside of the barrel or the bottle with the mescal. And if they dissolve, it's basically because either it has too much methanol or too much alcohol content. But that's how basically the story of the worm goes. That was for regulation. Not
Interesting.
exactly for flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to know. I noticed there's like different colors of mezcal. Some of them are brown.
Yeah.
Why?
So mainly it's because of the barrel aging process.
Oh.
Normally, for example, Holbins are always going to be white. Some of them are going to have maybe small yellow tones. Some of them
Right.
might have also small greener tones. But it depends on the agave.
Oh, it
Like I
depends.
mentioned, not all mezcals are supposed to be crystal clear. Like the Cabali agave has
Yeah.
a little bit of a yellow tone or a greener tone to it.
Right.
This is naturally how that looks. And for example, reposados do have a little bit more of a yellow tone to it.
Yeah.
Because they're barrel aged for less than a year.
Right.
Añejos can go from yellow, gold, up to brown, depending on the wood that they use.
Oh, okay.
So in
Okay.
this case, they're always going to have different kinds of colors. But if they have color, it's mainly because they're either añejos or reposados in a darker barrel. So,
Nice.
it's because of the wood process, the barrel aging process.
Good to know. Good to know. Interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot to pack and to learn.
Exactly.
I'm sure I'm gonna have to watch this again
Yeah.
and go over it, learn some more.
Exactly.
Yeah, because mezcal is like one of my favorite drinks so
Oh,
far.
right.
Yeah, I was introduced to it while I was in Guadalajara with a friend of mine,
Oh, right. Yeah.
and she took me to a restaurant. She was like, "You gotta try this." I'm like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
Normally I'll go for tequila or maybe some other,
Yeah.
and I've tried it. It was like one of the best thing ever, bro.
Yeah. But trust me, we
Yeah.
have around right now, I believe, 13 different kinds of stuff.
Oh, really?
So later on in happy hour, we're going to try it for you. We're going to see which is your favorite.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah.
All right. So, ready for happy hour?
Yeah, sure.
Or if you'd like, you can also go take a look at the fields, the horses, whatever.
Yeah, I would love to take a look at the field.
Of course.
Yeah, see some of the,
Yeah. Gonna get some footage.
get some footage.
Yeah. So.
Oh, it's a wide open space.
Yeah. So. The field that we have here is more like for demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly for mezcal making, because a field this small will not produce very much mezcal.
Oh,
Yeah, like I mentioned, around 5 tons of agave produces around 200 liters.
yeah.
Yeah. Not exactly very much what we have here.
So where do you guys put those
The rest of the agaves?
yeah,
So, some of them we have, you might say, other fields.
right.
Like I mentioned, this is more like for demonstration. Other fields are, in this case, exactly for mezcal making.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we have to buy with other farmers.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the thing is that, like I mentioned, it does take a long time to grow.
Yeah.
So in this case, we're never actually going to have enough to actually plant.
Yeah.
So we always have to buy with other farmers also.
Oh, nice. Interesting.
Yeah, so we have a few different agaves. So this one, for example, is known as a delumbre, a flame agave.
Mm-hmm.
It looks very similar to an agave spadine.
Right.
How you can tell that it's flame, because number one, it has redder thorns. And
Yeah.
number two is that once it grows completely, it's going to give off a bright red flower.
Yeah.
Yeah, unlike the other ones, which are green, purple, or in this case, a little bit more of a bluer tone. So this is very unique.
Yeah.
This one was just a recently discovered species because it looks exactly the same as an espadín.
Oh, really? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
Oh, wow.
still not considered, it's still not cataloged as a different kind of agave species,
Yeah.
but it does have a different flavor. and the flavors are consistent. So that's how we can tell it's a different species.
Right.
This one here is known as Arroqueño.
Arroqueño.
Means grown on rock.
Oh, wow.
This is the most expensive mezcal joven that we have.
Arroqueño?
Yeah, because it is an endangered species. So we can only make a certain amount of bottles
Right.
every year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's very regulated. Here, for
Interesting.
example, we have Spadin.
Yeah.
As you can see, the thorns aren't exactly very red, and it has more like a black tone to it.
Right.
And these ones right here are the pistatas. So another like the ones that look like cabbages over all the way over there, right in front of the horses.
Yeah.
Those ones are the tobalas. Like this one over here, for example. So,
Oh, I see.
tobala means under the shadow.
Tobala? Tobalo or Tobala?
Tobala.
Tobala.
Yeah.
Understand.
So, yeah, under the shadow and Zapata. It's a very unique kind of an agave.
It
Once
does.
upon
Looks very unique. Yeah.
So once upon a time, it was the most abundant agave in all of Oaxaca. That's why it became very popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people also harvest this agave, but it's still considered a wild agave because most people find them in the wild. So, very unique, a little more of an earthy flavor, sweet, and very easy on the palate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does look very unique.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I take a photo of it?
Of course, right ahead. Alright, so be a little careful with our friend here because he's a little bit feisty right now.
I see.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, these horses are more like for actual demonstration.
Right.
Yeah. These horses actually though, we use them to go to other fields.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Yeah, the thing is that these horses are not exactly as strong as mules. The mules over there, they're stronger, but they're a lot smaller.
Oh, the mules all look
Yeah, so,
tall, like
yeah.
compared to the one we have in the Caribbeans.
yeah, so she's actually very buff for a mule.
All right.
That's why she looks like a horse.
Oh,
Yeah. In
yeah,
this case,
she does. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the thing is that she's been working on the rock for a long time now.
Really?
Yeah, so she basically grew up with the rocks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a walk in the park for her right now. Yeah, but she's very buff. Very buff.
Yeah, she does. Looks very buff.
Yeah. So then I'll keep her there, and sometimes we move her over here,
Mm-hmm.
in other stalls. Try to keep her away from other horses,
Right.
because mules are smaller, but they're also very aggressive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're a lot more wild. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So in this case, yeah, just kind of cannot have them with other horses.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Do you guys normally hold events here?
I'm sorry?
Do you guys normally do events and stuff?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we also do weddings, anniversaries. Basically, kind of rent this area for events.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh,
So
no.
long ago, since they canceled the most important festivity here in Oaxaca,
Right.
the Guelaguetza,
Uh-huh.
yeah, we decided to make one of our own. So.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, kind of diverse over here.
Right.
Alright, so now then we can choose our tables. We have tables over here in the center area. We have
Sure.
tables here in the corner. Here in this area over here. Wherever you'd like to take a seat so we can start happy. And if you like bathrooms are over here.
I'm okay for now with the bathroom. Yeah, we can sit over here.
Of course.
Wow.
Alright, so. Right ahead then. In the meantime, I'm going to go for the bottles of mezcal so we can start the mezcal tasting.
Okay. Let's
You're
do it.
Maybe 8 hours. Or, yeah, 8 hours maybe the motor band is 2 hours, like that. Because it's now it's open in the 8 in the morning. 8 in the morning because it's the first place you need to see the motor band because it's only 400 people all day.
So just finished doing a quick tours with Henry. As of now, I will be doing a couple of tasting, maybe cap a bottle or two to go home with. Yep, looking forward to it.
We're going to start off happy hour. We're going to start off with round number 1.
Yeah.
And then try the different Agave Spadin mezcals.
Okay.
These 3 bottles are made from exactly the same agave.
Yeah.
Agave Spadin, the cultivated agave.
Yeah.
So, First one we're gonna try out of the three is known as Joven. Joven, like I mentioned,
Right.
2 times distilled, diluted, bottled up, and sold.
Yeah.
The original flavor of the agave, smokiness from the oven, and mineral from the copper. White mezcal.
Right.
So this one has only 38% alcohol content.
Right.
So it's not actually very strong compared to other mezcal. Now, in this case, this one has a little bit more of a drier taste to it.
This is drier. Yeah. Drier.
In this case, you might get a little bit of a fruity flavor, something sweet.
Yeah.
But it's very, very, very easy. In this case, a little bit earthy, and also mainly smoky. So a little bit sweet, earthy, smoky.
Okay.
How we drink a good mezcal so we get all the flavorings, and also so it won't burn us too fast, too much.
Yeah.
Now, mezcal's not a shooting alcohol.
Right.
If you shoot it, it's gonna burn.
Yeah.
If you take big gulps, it's gonna burn.
Okay.
It's more like a sipping alcohol. So, in this case with mezcal, we normally do what we call here kisses. We kiss our mezcal. Tiny bit in our mouth.
Yeah.
Pass it through our tongue so it touches all of our taste buds.
Yeah.
And then we swallow.
Right.
Once the mezcal touches our stomach, you might get a little bit of a tingling sensation on the nose or on the roof of your mouth.
Yeah.
If that happens, breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth.
Yeah.
In your mouth, pass through our tongue, we swallow, inhale, and then exhale.
Right.
Alright? So, what I served you is for like 2 to 3 kisses. Alright?
2 or 3 kisses.
Yeah. The oranges are in between each mezcal. That's to cleanse the palate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why the oranges are here. All mezcal should be drinking by itself. Alright? So, cheers then.
All right. Cheers. Let's do it.
Salud.
Do you get one too or no?
No, so
No.
I won't put my boss right there right now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So, cheers then.
Cheers. Cheers, yo. Very good.
Yeah. So, in this case, always the first mezcal that we're going to taste is going to be the most intense.
The most dense ones. Yeah.
In this case, because our palate has to get used to the actual flavor of the alcohol.
Yeah.
That's why you kind of get that burning sensation in the beginning. That's why it kind of tingles your nose, your mouth.
Yeah.
Because it's always the first one that hits you the most.
Yeah.
In this case, it's only 38% alcohol content. So
Right.
it does have flavor, but it's not exactly as strong as most. So, in this case, this to us Oaxacans tastes like water. That's why you have the rest of the mezcal. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Now,
That's
anytime
right.
I'm going to present the next mezcal that we're going to try. This mezcal is a very unique kind of mezcal. It's the most traditional one of the most traditionals that we have here. Now, it's known as Avocado con Gusano. Avocado
Yeah.
means that this mezcal has an ingredient. The ingredient is gusano. What is gusano? Worm.
Right.
This is basically the most popular worm mezcal. Now, normally, like I mentioned, it's barrel aged for 2 to 3 months with 2 to 3 kilos of agave worms after the second distillation.
Right.
So, in this case, it is going to have a yellow tone to it, or more of a yellow color to it,
Yeah.
because it is barrel aged.
Yeah.
So, in this case, not only the bottle has a worm, but somebody ate it. So, yeah, that's why it's not here right now.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, in this case, a little bit more of a barrel flavor.
Yeah.
And then maybe a little bit more aromatic. And in this case, maybe easier on the palate than the other mezcal that we tried. So, let's see how it tastes. In this case, it's very different for each person. For everybody, the mezcal experience is always very different.
Has this little aftertaste that comes after, like earthy,
Yeah.
kind of like woody.
Yeah, so you are going to get more like an aromatic or maybe even a perfume-like flavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's naturally because of the actual wood from the barrel aging process.
Okay.
The actual flavor doesn't really have very much of a worm flavor.
Right.
The worms aren't exactly there for flavor, they're more like for regulation.
Yeah.
Nowadays we do it because it's tradition.
Right.
In this case, it's one of the more unique flavored mezcals that we have here. Yeah. The next one we're going to try is also Agave Mezcalin,
Yeah.
also 2 times distilled. This one is known as Reposado.
Right.
Reposados are barrel aged for less than a year. In this case, 6 to 7 months. More yellow tones to our mezcal, more barrel flavor, and thanks to the sugar from the barrels,
Right.
also maybe even sweeter. If it's stronger or not, though, that depends on a person. In this case, it might be stronger because it has more flavor.
Yeah.
That's for